We're on a farm in Devon with a bunch of children. Darren from the Exmoor Game School is going to show them how to break down a roe deer carcass. They are going to help him, and they are going to mince the meat and cook and eat the burgers. He starts by asking them about killing animals and what they think of it.
There needs to be a space where children can ask those questions, and I'm very keen that, although I set that question of, is it good, bad, or slightly more complicated to kill an animal, although I sort of set that as an open question, I am very much led by the children's response. I don't have an answer to that. I'm not looking to move them all to the good side or the bad side or the more complicated side. There's a lot of that in they'll come across that in their life of people trying to push them one way or the other. So ask the question, keep it open, and be led by their responses and acknowledge their responses. If people think that killing animals is bad, understand that comes from a place of kindness predominantly, and that's not just these children, that's our kind of wider population. It's also coming from a place of sort of no first-hand experience, understanding or knowledge. So that's where I feel that, again, I'm not looking necessarily to change anyone's idea, but if I can give them that knowledge, understanding, and an open forum for them to ask those questions, then they will start thinking about it a bit deeper. And I do believe that a conclusion that you come to of your own volition has far more power than one of like, you should do this, think this is really good, because people go, well, hang on a minute, Whereas if I can just lay it all out for people and they come to a thing of, actually, makes a lot of sense, this does, and I can come through here, that is a decision that will affect change, I think, and is more likely to sort of create sort of informed, conscientious consumers of meat as they grow up into adulthood.
Amelia Greenway is the farmer here.
So we're National Trust tenant farmers, and what we do is we welcome educational visits for the community here on our farm. We regularly have visits here on the farm at least twice a week. We've got different workshops on. We welcome to the home ed community, local schools, colleges. It's really diverse, the people that we welcome. We'll meet the cattle, we'll talk about how we are farming organically with nature, we'll talk about the life cycle. There's many different things we do here. I get very excited when I get people on the farm who question our systems and people who ask me the difficult questions, because actually those are the people that we're needing to challenge the most. And if we can break down those barriers as farmers, then it's a job well done. We saw Darren's journey and we really wanted to involve him here on the farm. That was really important, that we always tell the story of farm to fork, or in this case, field to fork. People need to really be reconnected with their food again. I'm
sort of led by the group, so this is a special educational needs group, so it's not sit down, so they naturally went to the table, so the specifics of deer management and why we might manage deer, and for the good of the species, maybe not the individual, but the good of the species, they require that management there. Then we looked at the deer, and for some people that's quite a thing. This might be the first deer they've ever seen, and it's hung up by the back legs on the back of the truck. So that's quite a lot to take in. So now we're just having a little bit of a break so people can kind of process some of the things that we were talking about deer and deer management, because it's one thing to say it, and now this is the reality of deer management. So they're seeing it there. So now there's a bit of time for them to kind of process that in their own way, ask questions of the teachers or for adults that they're familiar with, and then we'll start again, and we're going to sort of start breaking down the animal ready for some lunch.
Not all of the kids liked it, so a couple of teachers lead a small group away to look at the chickens.
I think they'll all come back at some point. So once the head's off, and we sort of see this fairly, sort of nearly 2,000 sessions now. So they will wander back in at a point where once the skin's off, and it sounds ridiculous, but people go, oh, it's meat. Like they can then start to see it, and we're going to make a burger. And again, I'm keen that we use food that children are familiar with, because they can reverse engineer that. So at some point it will look like food that they recognise, and that's the point at which they re-engage. And that's fine, I don't need them to do it, yeah.
Darren is right. Once the deer is jointed and reduced to the kinds of pieces of meat that kids would see at a butcher or butchery counter in a supermarket, they start to come back.
It is a real privilege to share in a genuine, new and novel experience with it's a shame that it is new and novel in one respect, but to be part of that enthusiasm and to see some very real emotion that's that's hard to hide, you know, that thing of like, oh wow, that is an actual deer, or I didn't know it was going to feel like that, or you know, that sort of exploration, and everyone has got involved, you know, even the people that initially were like, oh, that's a bit much. Everyone has cut some meat up, everyone has minced some meat up, made a burger, sat down and tried their burger with varying degrees of, you know, success, but everyone has tried it, and everyone is now, you know, thinking a little bit more about that sort of process. There was a point where it became familiar, and then it was like, oh, like I've seen that meat in Morrison's or the butcher's shop or something like that. Now I'm back somewhere that I'm comfortable with, and because, as I said earlier, it is a really familiar format being a burger, those children can now reverse engineer that burger, meat, deer, farming, and bring it back down that way. So they've seen the whole process and the whole chain.
By the end of the 3-hour session, the kids are happily munching into Roebuck burgers. For Darren, who was a teacher for 22 years before he set up the Exmoor Game School, this is about giving the kids context and vocabulary. It is a gentle introduction to game and meat.
So one of the teachers here today is a vegetarian, but has been, and she said, well, actually, she actually said earlier, if I was going to eat meat, this is the meat I'd eat. You know, there isn't a reason, and that's fine, isn't it? If people come to that thing of, I don't want to eat an animal because of my own personal thing, that's fine. You know, that's your opinion. But what we see quite a lot of is, I don't want to do it, and you shouldn't do it either. And that is where that shuts down that conversation. You know, of, you know, it doesn't allow, there isn't any room for questioning there or exploration. It is, you know, finger pointing and wagging and all of that kind of stuff.
To find out how to have Darren along to your school, your college, or even your children's party, visit theexmoorgameschool.com.